A new system to support children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities was introduced in September 2014. The system needed to change to ensure that families get the support they need, when they need it, without having to fight hard to get it. So, how will the new arrangements help families? In simple terms, councils and other services now need to put families first and at the centre of all planning. That means local authorities, health bodies, schools, colleges, everyone providing services, spending more time talking and listening to families. There are now legal duties on councils and health bodies to involve parents, children and young people in shaping, commissioning and delivering services and in reviewing their ongoing effectiveness. That means working in partnership with children, young people and parents. In short, co-production. Parent carer forums in more than 2/3 of local areas are working in co-production, and they report having made tough decisions and saving money during challenging times. But by involving those who are affected by those services fully in the decision-making process and co-producing with them, they've also managed to improve the effectiveness and take-up of services. It's encouraging to see how many local areas are already embracing this way of working. So I would urge everyone, staff working in local authorities, health bodies and other local services, as well as local parents and young people, to continue working together in just this way so that it becomes the standard way of working everywhere, enabling our children and young people to receive the support that they deserve.
Well, at Point we realised working in co-production was the right thing to do from day one. It was essentially making sure that parents and carers had an active voice and they were able to be put in the position of shaping services locally to match the needs of their families and young people.
Back in 2008, the Aiming High initiative in Leicester City meant that the parents and carers set up a forum, and also we had a Big Mouth forum for young people, and in many ways those two fora work very closely together. We see them as very integrated, and that meant when we started as a Pathfinder we had a strong foundation to build upon, didn't we?
And the journey started from the beginning, side by side. There was no agenda set. It was very much a discussion, and let's involve parent carers right from the very beginning.
What we said was, right, we won't spend a pound of this money without your express approval. And that was, I think, for me, the turning point was when parents thought, actually, they really are going to listen to us. They're not going to make decisions without us. It's worth our while working with them.
I think it's important really you understand who the decision makers are. So some of the key people that we engaged with were things like the head of additional and complex needs service, but also the local councillors, because they fundamentally hold the decision making powers within the local authority, and it's really key to have those on board fighting your cause as well. Well, I think the first thing that we needed to do in order to get working in co-production locally in Oldham was to make sure that we had an equal say in the decision-making powers. So we had to agree almost a service level agreement for how we were going to engage locally and what forms that engagement would take, what strategic boards we were insistent that we sat upon to make sure that those decisions were robust and equal.
We had quite a number of meetings actually, really kind of to align what we were trying to achieve, what was the purpose of us working together. What were the ground rules in terms of how were we going to operate, that level of professionalism, trying to be objective, but still bring in obviously everybody's perspective, and it's back to having those adult conversations, you know, the firm, frank, open, honest, transparent conversations where you can say stuff.
We had a sort of a top-down model where strategically across the local authority and within our children and families plan, it was sort of believed that families should be in production with any of the strategic policies that we were doing. But also I think we've had a bottom-up model within services, that services also really wanted to work in co-production with families. And it's developed this cultural approach from the local authority, from the health authority, that we want to work with families together to actually look at all our policies.
Stuart and I would both argue quite strongly that co-production, working together in partnership, isn't a process. It's a belief system. You've really got to, at your core, believe that it's the right thing to do, firstly, and secondly, that you will make better decisions as a consequence of working together. You have to be prepared to share power, to give up power in some cases, to say to the parents, actually, you can make those decisions.
So we had to make a lot of relationships within our local authority. We really had to champion, get round the table with people, get them to understand that the Parent Carer Forum was more than parents making demands on services, and it was a real opportunity for those services to have the parent carer contribution and understand why things needed to be done in a different way, which has really led to some robust decision making.
And we found that the more we work in co-production, the more things we see on a day-to-day basis that are making changes as a result of the views that we've been put forward.
And that's not just within the local authority personnel, that's with parents and carers as well. I think one of the important changes that's been brought about is they now passionately believe and trust that we can make a difference. You know, it's not just hearsay. We are there demonstrating that results are coming out of that for the benefit of all service users.
And a parent such as Fazila knows that I respect her view, absolutely value her opinion as much as a colleague who is a professional, either from social care or any other agency.
People like Dave and his colleagues on the Parent and Carer Forum give so much of their time freely in a busy life where they've got lots of demands, maybe lots of appointments for their son or daughter to attend. It tends to create a real attitude of respect, I think, from the professionals that engage with the families too, that they know that they're balancing all sorts of demands on their life, and yet they're able to take this very altruistic way of working across the city so that they don't just think about their own son or daughter.
And we found that when you can show and evidence that parent participation in co-production really makes such strong positive changes without having a cost implication on the service, usually it means that services run much more efficiently. Other services want to get involved, and it becomes like a catalyst, really.
I think there's numerous examples where our involvement's helped to improve services, and particularly short breaks work that's been going on locally in Oldham. And as an authority, we've had significant budget cuts across the authority that we've all had to come to terms with, and short breaks hasn't been exempt from that. So it's given us a real opportunity to understand the pressures that are on the local authority, to understand and meet the needs of parents and carers. So originally, where the local authority might have been proposing that services would be lost, we've managed to reshape them in such a way that by delivering them in a different way to what the local authority have previously done, we've actually kept those services while still being able to achieve in the local authority those budget cuts that were imminent.
I think if a service isn't working, you don't continue ploughing forward, you stop, you collect, you gather evidence, and you talk. It's quite a painful process because you can find that when we're having meetings with service managers that it's very negative stuff that we're bringing. This hasn't happened, this hasn't worked because. But you turn it round and say, but if you did this instead, you'd have more positive results.
The two things that really stick out for me are the local offer and some of our communication tools like our Mythbuster and around the education, health and care plan. Would you agree?
Definitely. The HC plan and the local offer, we were there right from the beginning. So we were able to give our perspective of the experience that many of the parents had up till then and what they would like for the future.
Families were actually coming back to us after the meetings we had saying, well, actually, we don't like that plan. We want this in the plan. But you sort of have been quite determined as a group what they wanted in the Wolverhampton Education Healthcare Plan. And that our plan now, today, reflects exactly what parents wanted in the plan.
One of the key challenges was accepting that the partners around the table had perhaps a different level of understanding about what co-production meant, and allowing people to arrive at their understanding of that and their implementation of it at slightly different paces.
Because we work together with parents, mostly volunteer parents, who don't get paid, we get paid a lot of money. There's a massive power imbalance between us, or potentially there is.
You're all working towards the same common goal and you're building up that trust. I think it's the trust that makes a difference. I think I've seen people just coming across and being won over just by the proof in the pudding.
I do think professional training really beats out a lot of ideas around co-production because I think what it is they're taught you know best and you're going to be skilled and trained, and your professional training is going to make sure that you know what's best for this person if they have particular symptoms. And I think that can be a real problem.
We have had issues along the way where maybe, you know, services didn't particularly agree with what the parents' view were, because it wasn't just mine and my colleagues' view. We was taking all our opinions, all the templates, everything back to the wider parents' voice.
If you're short-sighted and you start making decisions on behalf of people, in the long run, it's a slower process and more costly because you're guaranteed to make mistakes that you then have to spend ages going back over and rectifying, and it's financially expensive as well.
Yeah, do it once properly rather than twice quickly.
Yeah.
So when you see it just from your perspective, you can be very simplistic when you don't understand the challenges that everyone else has to face. I think you're more likely to come to resolution because people then are able to kind of, I use the word compromise and negotiate in a positive way to get a better outcome.
I think co-production has really embedded transparency and honesty and sharing.
So you do see the world in a very different way when different things become possible.
Of course, you can always improve. We need to engage with more parents. We need more professionals to be on board with this agenda. We've got the principles right. We've got good foundations. We've got good leaders engaged with it all. We just need a wider reach.
I'd like to see the principles and the practice that we've evidenced within the health work stream spread across broader partnerships within the family of partnerships across health and social care and education, and move beyond the SEND reform agenda so that it's about all services for children, young people and families being co-produced.
I think it's important not to be complacent and not to assume just because you've got some parents involved that you're, working in a co-produced way. I think it's important that you keep going back to families and looking for ways to get involved at, at a higher level.
Impact of co-production across the local area has been massive, absolutely huge, and I think the biggest thing that I would say is that parents, carers and children and young people are now fully at the heart of the decision making, and I think we're now in a position 4 years down the line where the local authority really values and also respects those views, and I think they see the benefit of obviously having us around the table and putting a different slant on things.
Colleagues now wouldn't think not to involve parents in those decision-making.
No, and certainly some of the meetings wouldn't go ahead if they weren't present.
No.
And it's standard practice now across Wolverhampton that, nearly everything would have to be parent approved.
The heart of these reforms is the culture change. It's that shifting the focus and the lens back onto the family and reducing the bureaucracy that we've developed around access to special needs and support.
I mean, the whole SEND service was co-produced.
Co-designed,
from
the beginning. And you can't look at a 98% satisfaction rate with a service and not go, wow, that's amazing. And the reason we did it is because we work together. Together we make better decisions, and it is just that simple.
I don't think they realise how far we've come along in the last 10, 15 years. It's been dramatic, really.
Without a shadow of doubt, we will never go back to the way things were before in Oldham.
It didn't work for the parents and carers, it didn't work for the children and young people, it didn't work for the service providers.
And also, I think it makes life in the workplace more enjoyable.
The notion of partnership work has been strengthened by co-production within both our legislation, our Children and Families Act last year, our Code of Practice for SEND, and in terms of the culture shifts that is currently around.
I could not work in an organisation that didn't value the voice of parent carers, children and young people. It's what is the point of your job if it isn't to deliver better services for those people, and how do you deliver better services
if you're not working with those people.
But the focus of all of this work is the children and young people, and that actually by breaking down those barriers, by parents and professionals all working together equally, that we can do that and we can make the outcomes better for our young people.
And for the parents to understand that that is actually the motivation.
Yes.
For everybody, not just for parents.